Protesters have been gathering in Washington, D.C. and many other cities to mobilize against racism and police brutality. Tens of thousands braved a hot, humid day to call for reform in the U.S. Capitol. That protest and others around the world have arisen from outrage over the death of George Floyd, who died while in police custody in Minneapolis, now almost 2 weeks ago.
The message is clear. In their thousands, they converged on downtown Washington, D.C. Local officials had projected over 100,000 people would attend. The heat and humidity were no deterrent.
Everyone is not racist. It's literally a few. But the laws, things, they're old, they're outdated, they need to change.
People understand now. It's not enough to be angry. You have to vote. You have to translate that into action.
There needs to be consequence for that action, and it needs to be taught that that won't happen no more. Enough is enough.
While demanding action against police brutality is at the forefront of Saturday's peaceful demonstrations, these protests are also highlighting a long-standing problem of what many call systemic racism and inequality in the United States. Topics that will likely become central to the presidential battle for the White House in November.
DW Washington Bureau Chief Alexandra von Naumann was at that march in the U.S. Capitol. She spoke to protesters about what they want to see happen now.
People I talked to told me that it's for them very important the justice must be served in the case of George Floyd. They want the officers who were involved in his death to be punished, convicted. But they also told me that they want a real change in the United States. I talked to an African-American family. They brought their son, their small kids, with them to the protest. They told me it's important for the kids to see what's happening. Enough, it's enough. It's good to see that there are so many people in the streets, but they also told me they don't believe that a real change, that the end to racial injustice can happen with President Trump in the White House. And we are hearing a lot of chants like, vote him out. There are those stickers that many people are wearing, Trump Pence must go. So it's becoming a very political protest at the same time.
Joining us now from Los Angeles is journalist KJ Matthews. KJ, it's good to see you again. We just heard in that report that people have turned out in the tens of thousands for the Black Lives Matter protest in the nation's capital. What about Los Angeles?
Well, Los Angeles has had its own protests here as well. There was one downtown Los Angeles. There was one in Hollywood. There were a few other protests in surrounding counties around Los Angeles County. There weren't as many people as you would see in Washington, D.C., in New York, and even places like Atlanta and Philadelphia. But there were still hundreds of people that took to the street all day long from Hollywood to Beverly Hills into downtown Los Angeles today as well.
KJ, as you know, people are not only protesting against police brutality against people of color, but they're also crying out against systemic racism and discrimination. You cover entertainment there in Los Angeles. Is there still major concern that Black people are underrepresented in the industry? And if so, why?
Yes, that's a big problem. There's actually two big problems. The biggest problem is what you just mentioned, is that there's still a number of people who are still misrepresented and underrepresented in Hollywood, Black people, Hispanic, Asians. And not only that, with the Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians that are there in Hollywood, many of them are complaining now about how they're treated. Just yesterday, or a couple of days ago, actually, when people did the Blackout Tuesday, there were a number of Hollywood companies, networks, and studios saying that they stood in solidarity with their Black brothers and sisters. And then there were a number of actresses that basically went on Twitter and social media and said, I work with those studios, I work at those television networks, and I wasn't treated very well. So a lot of the companies had to kind of back away and say, we're sorry, we're going to try to do better. But at least it has a lot of people here in Hollywood discussing what can we do, we need to do better, and we're listening now. We're listening to our African-American employees to tell us what can we do to make things better.
Journalist KJ Matthews here in Los Angeles. Always good to see you. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.